Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Rosemary, and in today's video I have part 3 of my 2023 dollar dupes from high-end retail stores, and this week we have some beautiful pieces from Pottery Barn. I'd like to begin with this Draper brass pillar candle holder centerpiece retailing for $189. To make the tray base, I used a 24-inch Dollar Tree sign. This one happens to be from Easter, but any of the 24-inch long signs will do since I flipped it over to use the back. To create the edge of the tray, I used these strips, which were left over from last week's Anthropology Dupes video, where I made this sphere topiary using Hot Wheels tracks. I cut off the edges of the tracks and only used the middle part in that DIY, but now I'll be using those edges for this one. I did use miter shears here to cut a 45-degree angle, but you could also cut with scissors or just do square edges here too. After measuring and cutting all the pieces, I sanded the strips to roughen the surface of the plastic so that the paint will better adhere. Then I applied the pieces to the sign using E6000 glue, secured in place with clips, and then set aside for the glue to set. Next, I turned my attention to the candle holders. I wanted to use square dowels to replicate the stands, and you can get those 36-inch ones at Walmart, home improvement stores, or craft stores, and cut those down. But be wary of these pre-cut packs, as those come in varying widths. Since I already had this pack of 1-inch half square dowels that I picked up on Amazon on hand, I used those. Even though the stands on the original do appear to be more in that 1/4 inch width range, I decided to go with the 1/2 inch since that gave me more surface area for the glue to bond, and I'd rather give up a little exact matching to ensure the sturdiness of the piece. The dowels were too thick for my miter shears to cut, so I did have to go back to the old tried and true miter box and saw to cut. And I did make 7 cuts, all in line with the original, and the measurements are shown there on the screen. Before attaching the stands to the base, I wanted to fill in the holes in the sign, so I used a little caulk to do that, and I also filled in the gaps on the mitered trim. But then I decided it was probably better to first attach the metal bases to the stands. So for the small bases, I used recycled 2-inch jar lids from items like jam and maraschino cherries, and for the larger bases, lids from salsa jars. Now, since these stands and bases will be holding glass containers, I wanted to make extra certain there would be absolutely no issue with adhesion. So I'm pulling out the big guns with DevCon 2-ton epoxy that I dispense, then mix together before applying to one end of the dowel, then centering on the back of the jar lid. It's important to take note of which size lid goes with the different dowel lengths. I let the glue set up for at least an hour before spacing and assembling the lids and dowel combos on the base, following the design of the original. I marked the space with an X, then began securing with the 2-ton epoxy. And then from this angle, you can see where the stands were placed relative to their height. Then I let the glue dry for about an hour and then gave the entire piece a coat of black chalk paint. Since there are so many materials here, plastic, wood, metal, and MDF, this will serve to not only give a uniform color to all the pieces, but also a uniform surface that also has a bit of texture for the spray paint to better adhere. And for the spray paint, I used Rust-Oleum Metallic in the color Brass Metallic. And this is the only brass colored paint I found to have a brass finish with a gold undertone versus the others which seem to have more of a silver undertone. And then here it is after it was spray painted. But I'm not really loving the finish, especially on the MDF board. So I decided to go ahead and brush coat on Folk Art Metallic Craft Paint in the color Brushed Gold. And this is how it looked after. I like this much better, and I'm thinking you can just skip the spray paint since this brush paint did such a nice finish. For the glass candle holders, I'll be using this 4-pack of votives from the Dollar Tree, and for the larger ones, these I had on hand from IKEA, but you can also find similar ones at Dollar Tree or Walmart. And then this is how the piece comes all together, and I styled it with a little greenery, and the neat thing about this piece is that you can change out the greens for the seasons, holidays, or events, or just leave plain for a great minimal everyday piece. And then here it is next to the original. It's not as long, but actually I think that works to its favor since at 24 inches it's still quite a substantial piece, but still reasonable for most tables and consoles where the 32-inch original would need to be placed on a somewhat oversized table to not overpower it. For the next dupe, I'd like to do the Decor Mango Wood Lantern, retailing for $299. Now, this is a large lantern standing 32 inches tall, and our dupe version won't be quite as big, but you can easily upsize it using larger materials. So for the dollar dupe, I used this wood box with lid from the Dollar Tree. It did have this unicorn design on the top and some holes, but I worked around those. I also used 4 of those 12-inch long and 1/2-inch wide square dowels from the last project. And for the handle, I'm going to use this plastic handle from a Dollar Tree cake carrier left over from yet another project, this rusty copper and verdigris planter from my Dollar Tree planters video. And yes, I may be a little bit of a hoarder, just a little bit. But see how these things come in handy? So to start the project, I first addressed the holes in the box by again filling in with some caulk I had on hand. Wood filler would have been better here, but mine got all dried up, so I have to buy some more. And this one will do. Next, I wanted to try and tone down that unicorn print, so I tried to sand that down a little bit. Since I really didn't have the color stain to match the original, I decided to use a combo of stains I did have on hand, plus some paint to achieve the finish, starting with golden oak stain. I used a paper towel to apply the stain, rubbing it into the wood on the box, the lid, and the dowels. Unfortunately, that first stain alone didn't do much to cover the unicorn as much as I would have liked, so I jumped over to the hazelnut chalk paint and applied that to the box lid with a semi-dry brush. I will need to use this anyway to create a faux wood look on the plastic handle, which, after roughing up with some sandpaper, I proceeded to paint with the hazelnut chalk paint. I then continued to dry brush paint the sides of the lid as well as the other wood pieces with the hazelnut paint, again using a very dry brush just to slightly impart that earthy brown color. For the next layer color, I used the second stain I had on hand in the color Gunstock, and since I again just wanted to impart the slightest tinge of that rusty red to this piece, I'll apply and then quickly remove. And remember, I'm doing all of this just to use what I have on hand to color match the original, but if I had a stain that was a better match, I would only be using the one. I also applied some of the Gunstock stain to the painted plastic handle and used my gloved fingers to create some variation. A dry chip brush would also work here. Now, I think this next part might be wrong. In the image I was working off of, it appeared that the base was painted black, so I taped off the edges and painted it with black chalk paint. However, in other images, it does appear to just be stained wood, and it may have been the lighting on that one image. Either way, it's black now. Once the paint on the base was dry, I attached one dowel to each corner using Titebond quick and thick glue, making sure that the dowels were lined up with the edges of the box and then scraped away any of the excess glue. To assemble the lantern top, I used 4 of the wood craft cubes from Dollar Tree and gave them the same stain and paint finish as the other wood pieces. Next, I marked the center of the lid and placed the handle there, then glued 2 cubes to each side. Once the glue on the cubes was set, I used E6000 to glue the handle in between. Once that was set, I painted both the lantern and the lid with polyurethane to seal. And then here it is compared with the original. It's considerably shorter and skinnier at just 17 inches tall and 4 inches wide compared to the 32 inches high and 11 inches wide of the original. But if you did want to replicate at the larger size, you could use the same process with a larger box and the long 36-inch dowels from the hardware store. In the meantime, this smaller version is still substantial with its 17-inch height and would look great on a table, shelf, or console, lending that upscale Pottery Barn vibe for a fraction of the price. For the next Pottery Barn dupe, I'd like to do this FABEDhacks handcrafted terracotta ceramic bowl, retailing for $99. To make, I'll be using one of these Dollar Tree garden dishes and the lid to a recycled candle. I'll remove the sticker, then wash and dry the bowl and wipe with vinegar to make sure all oils and other residue are gone. Next, I use sandpaper to scuff and roughen the surface of the bowl. From there, I attach the candle lid to the bottom of the bowl using E6000. Once the glue is set, I use spackle paint, which is my favorite paint to create a ceramic finish, and I make it using 1 part spackle and 1 part chalk paint. I like the Dollar Tree spackle for this application since it's light and airy, and then Waverly chalk paint since they have so many beautiful colors in natural tones, perfect for recreating ceramic finishes. Plus, chalk paint adds to the pottery-like texture, and at $1.67 at Walmart for the small bottles, which go a long way, especially when mixing with the spackle, the price is right too. For this project, I'm using the color Cashew. Then, once mixed, I'll paint onto the surface of the bowl, brushing the strokes horizontally. After the first coat, I thought the color was a bit warm relative to the original, so I decided to cool down a bit by adding some Waverly sandstone colored chalk paint to the mix. Next, since the original does have a bit of a raised rim, I painted stacked layers of the paint just around the top of the bowl and down about 1/2 inch. To increase bulk, I used the bowl edge to scrape the paint from the foam brush and smoothed out again to build up the rim. To replicate the chips on the rim like in the original, I pushed down into the rim with the handle of the brush and my thumb to make indents, then allowed the bowl to fully dry. To paint the rim, I used black chalk paint and painted along the raised area, making sure to paint around the chips. Next, using a thin brush, I painted a black ring about 1/2 inch below the bottom of the rim, like in the original. Luckily, the line on the original is wavy and imperfect, so painting this freehand is not an issue, since the more wonky, the better. From here, I let the bowl rest overnight, so that all the paint and indents would have the chance to fully set. The next day, I did the terracotta shading, and to do that, I mixed together hazelnut and pumpkin Waverly paint to get a muddled terracotta color. I'm using the brush to mix since I want the bristles of the brush loaded, but I also want them dry, if that makes any sense. So, after mixing, I dabbed the brush sideways to uniformly remove the paint, leaving paint on each of the bristles, just very little of it. On the other hand, I did want a lot of paint on the very tip of the brush so that I could add pretty strong lines of paint in certain spots, including right here under the rim. And then I also wanted strong shadows along the base and also in some of the areas in between the base and the thin line. Then once those darker shadows were applied and the brush was now fairly dry both on the tip and throughout, the next step was to add some lighter shadowing using the dry brush and just lightly going over the textured raised surface created by the spackle paint base. Next, I took a damp paper towel and went over those areas, softening and blurring them in some spots. And you can see here where you really want that black paint to have set overnight so that it's nice and dry and won't smear when you are wiping the wet paper towel to do the blurring and the softening. And yes, I could have just painted the black last. However, since I'm trying to replicate the original, it was important for me to have those lines in place as a guide before doing the shading. And then once I got that terracotta shading the way I wanted it, I did go back with a damp cloth to clean up the black lines where some of the terracotta smear had gotten onto it. In order to replicate the glaze finish of the original, I painted the exterior of the bowl with a high gloss clear spray. One coat didn't quite cut it, but here it is after a second coat. Now the interior of the bowl does seem to have more of a matte finish, so I sealed that with a couple coats of matte Mod Podge. And then lastly, the original does have some black speckling, so I went back with the thin brush and black chalk paint to make little dashes and dots to create those markings. And then here it is compared to the original. Now it is about 5 inches smaller in diameter than the original, but again, that can be easily remedied by using the same techniques on a larger bowl. I'm really loving the look of this bowl, and the piece definitely has an olive atelier look, which, by the way, is the next high-end retailer I will be duping. So if you want to be among the first to see that video when it's published, make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification bell. In the meantime, if you'd like to check out parts 1 and 2 of this series, featuring restoration hardware and anthropology, click on the link here. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.